might keep changing your direction. Sometimes the trials of life can knock you to the floor. So hold your head up high, God will lead and guide you. He won't leave you, so please hold on and never give up, never give in. You're closer to the top.
Welcome to those of you who are viewing and listening from around the world. We are so glad that you have joined us. This is My Journey with Paula G, where we are juggling this journey called life while walking in the gifts and talents that God has given us. And if this is your first time on the journey, welcome. We are so glad that you have joined us. And if you're returning on the journey, it is so good to have each and every one of you back. Because, I always tell you all each and every week, time is precious. And we have really seen that in the last couple of years, just how precious time is. And it's the one thing that you cannot get back. So for you to think it not robbery, to spend this time with us is truly, truly appreciated as we bring you testimonies and stories of our guests who are juggling this journey called life while they're walking in the gifts and the talents that God has given each and every one of them. And we are so appreciative of our underwriters who are embracing the journey by providing a platform upon which we can share these stories. And underwriting is really a great opportunity for those who have a business product or service to gain exposure for their business product or service while supporting the journey. And if you're interested in being an underwriter for My Journey with Paula G, you can email us at jerryroycelive@gmail.com or paula@paulagvoice.com. Place underwriting opportunities in the subject line, and we can have a conversation about how you can become a part of this journey. So we thank you all so very, very much. Each and every week, as we are having these conversations with our guests, a lot of you are reaching out and sharing with us just how encouraged and blessed you are by a lot of these testimonies and these stories and just the inspiration that you find, because sometimes you see yourselves in some of our guests. And that's the whole point of the show, is to let you know whatever's going on in your life, it's going to happen, because we all are juggling this journey we call life, but we still have these gifts. We still have these talents that God has given each and every one of us. So, it's a matter of navigating the two. And if I can do it, our guests can do it, you can do it as well. All right. Well, before we bring on a guest, I want to share a bit of Paula's perspective. And I have an excerpt here from my book, which can be found on my website, and it is entitled My Journey to Lady Wisdom After Midnight. You can find that on my website at paulagvoice.com. Also, make sure you connect with me across social media, Paula G. Voice. And here we go. Our journey and who we are today is a summary of all of our life experiences. Who we are today is the manifestation of those life experiences, be they positive, negative, or somewhere in between. The person you are today is the sum of your journey. And I always say that who we are today and what we bring to the table is a manifestation of the echoes of our past, be they positive or negative. And sometimes we kind of have to peel back the layers, because sometimes there are things that have occurred in our past that we may not have resolved, that have manifested into a present thought process or behavior that may not necessarily be positive. We all have it. We're all guilty of it. But, in the process of growing, and each day that we wake up and each day that we're breathing and opening our eyes, we have new opportunities. We have new experiences that contribute to who we are and who we become. So just know that each of us are a sum of those experiences. Each of us are unique. And as we move forward in life, my prayer is that we will gain the knowledge from those experiences to move forward in a positive manner so we too can embrace our respective journeys while walking in the gifts and the talents that God has given each and every one of us. So I hope that inspired you for today's Paula's Perspective. It is time for my guest today, and I am looking forward to this conversation. She is an award-winning filmmaker. She's a photographer, she's an activist, she's an author, and she's the author of My Beautiful Black Hair 101 Natural Hair Stories from the Sisterhood. And I can't not wait to talk to this young lady. She is St. Clair. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is a joy. It is a joy. It is a joy. And we have a few things that we're going to talk about today. But the first thing I want to talk about, because I have a question. You have a BA in French and Francophone studies. Did I say that correctly?
You did, yeah.
Okay, what is Francophone studies? That's like the second time I've heard that.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me what that is. So Francophone is basically French speaking. So, French speaking countries, certain countries in Africa, certain countries in the Caribbean, parts of Canada, right? French speaking culture. So that's what Francophone is. And so the studies that I did in college were around France, but also all of these other places that have French culture.
So in all of these different places that have French culture, my daughter kind of learned this when she did her study abroad when she was in college with Spanish. In the French language, are there different dialects where you speak French, but you may go to another French speaking company and you may not necessarily understand each other, even though you speak in the same language?
I think you would understand each other, but there's definitely different accents. And so,
There you go.
yeah. And so it can be a little difficult. For example, as a non-native French speaker like myself, the French that I learned was French from France. And so sometimes if I hear French from certain African countries, for example, that's a little bit harder for me to understand.
So it's well, like you said, the accents and perhaps the dialect.
Yeah, the accents and dialects change, but I think you can more or less understand
the basics.
Yeah, the basics. It's like American English and British English.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's a good analogy. There you go. You can definitely tell the difference.
Yeah.
You can definitely tell the difference. I've traveled to Europe. I've traveled to Europe frequently, at least twice a year. And it is so funny because one time we were at a store or something, and one of the British ladies asked what time it was. So I looked at my watch and it was like 6:15 or something. And the room just stopped. I'm like, did I say something wrong? And then somebody, said, "You're American." And I'm like, how'd they know I was American? And then I'm like, oh, I opened my mouth. Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, accent and the dialect is a bit different.
Yeah.
So share with us, and for women of color, the hair journey has been a journey from the time we exited the womb throughout our lives, and as evident of the inspiration behind your book, your daughter Chloe. Tell us a little bit about her story and how that evolved into the book.
Yeah, so when I was finishing up my last semester of college, actually, I got a phone call from my dad who lives in France, saying that my little sister Chloe, who was only 4 years old at the
Your
time.
sister. I'm sorry, I said your daughter.
Oh no, that's okay.
Okay.
I'm almost old enough to be her mom. But so I got a phone call from my dad, and he said that my sister was being bullied at school by her majority white classmates, and they were telling her that her afro was ugly. And my sister came home from school crying. She didn't want to go back to school. And that was really heartbreaking for me, right? Especially because she was so young, only 4 years old. But as you just said, for Black women, this hair journey starts as soon as we come out of the womb, right? And society sort of feeds into us this narrative that our natural hair isn't good enough. And so I was really upset by that, and I can show you a picture of my sister Chloe. Actually,
Oh,
here she is.
please. Oh,
So you can see she has this beautiful, beautiful
yeah.
hair. And I was determined to do something to let her know that her hair is beautiful, right? Because she wasn't getting those affirmations from her classmates. She wasn't getting those affirmations from mainstream media. And so I decided, well, I'm going to give her those affirmations, right? I'm going to make sure she knows there's this beautiful community of Black women with natural hair who love and support her.
Oh, wow. That, and that is so huge. And as I'm listening to you, I'm reflecting on, my generation and the generations before me who didn't have that, and how all of that, the negativity about our hair, how it becomes a part of that journey, I was speaking about before. We are some of our experiences and how that kind of manifests on us. And a lot of us struggle with self-esteem and how we looked and so forth because of the hair. So for you to be an advocate and to take on the charge of planting those positive seeds and letting her know how beautiful she is, with her hair just the way it is such a blessing. That is such a blessing. So how do we come up with 101 ways?
Yeah. So when I started this project, I really did think it was just going to be something small for my sister. I thought I was going to interview and photograph a couple women with natural hair. But the more women I interviewed, the more I realized I actually really like doing this.
Mhm.
And I think that even though this project is for my sister, it's also for every Black woman and girl who's ever felt like she's not enough with her natural hair. And so I sort of kept on extending my little benchmarks, my goal points for how many women I wanted. So I remember thinking, all right, I'm going to get 50 women, right? That's a lot of women. And then I got to 50, and I remember thinking, actually, I'm having a lot of fun. I want to continue because every Black woman's hair story, even though there's the shared experience, all of our hair stories are also unique, right? And every single woman who I interviewed added a new perspective. And so I just was sort of eating it up, and I wanted to hear all of these different perspectives and experiences and reasons why people went natural, and learning about how they personally found self-love. And so I ended up going with 100, and then sort of at the last minute there was one more woman who wanted to be a part of it, and so that's how it got to be 101.
Wow. Would you say, just in general, the age range from the youngest to the most seasoned? What would you say the age range is for the women that you interviewed?
So the youngest girl was 4 years old when I photographed her. So same age as my sister at the time. And the oldest woman was around in her 60s.
So you really had generations, the perspective of different generations of Black women and how the whole hair journey has manifested. Can you, what would you say, if there is such a thing, was perhaps a common thread from a 4-year-old to a 60-year-old, if there was one? What would you say was a common thread, or something that you heard more common amongst them all?
Yeah, it's interesting how almost all of the women, if not all of the women I interview, went through some phase of hating their natural hair. And even the 4 year old, I thought it was cute, but also sad. Even the 4 year old that I interviewed, her advice to my sister Chloe, she said, Chloe, don't worry. I used to be like you once. I used to not like my hair too, right? But now I love my hair. So even by 4 years old, she had already gone through that experience of thinking that her natural hair wasn't good enough. And that's something that, the women of all ages, going up to women in their 60s, shared with me in the book, which I think is sad on the one hand, but then it's also really beautiful and powerful to see these testimonies of these women who have found self-love within themselves. And they've come to it in all different ways, but they're all there now, which is beautiful.
Wow. And it as you're sharing, it just speaks to the negative power, I'm going to say negative, of the narrative that we're fed really almost from coming out the womb. To have a 4-year-old to say what they don't like about their natural hair. So in being an author, book being inspired by your sister, book being inspired by your sister Chloe, you became an author.
Mm-hmm.
In that process, you also were able to use another gift and another talent you have in the form of photography. Share with us a bit about the journey of the photographs and what you felt behind the camera, and if there were any particular experiences as you were photographing these women, that any particular experiences that speak to you or spoke to you.
Yeah, it's interesting that this was my first really time exploring photography. Actually, I'd done a little bit in the past, and my godfather is a photographer, so I'd borrowed his camera sometime, but this was, the first, I guess, professional photography project that I did. And so I learned a lot along the way. And I think one of the coolest experiences for me being behind the lens was actually zooming in on everyone's eyes, because I always do manual focus on my camera. And so I want to make sure that everyone's eyes are in focus. And so basically I take the camera and I zoom in just so I get to their eyes, and then I adjust based on there. And there's something about seeing people's eyes very up close like that that just makes you feel really connected. And you know how they say eyes are the portal to the soul? And I really felt that when I was photographing women. And it was this really beautiful experience of being able to see everyone who I photographed, regardless of, these traditional beauty standards or whatever. I really felt like all of that went out the window for me when I was doing this photography, because every single woman who I photographed, when I looked at her through this lens, I was like, she's beautiful. And I had that experience for every single woman. And that was really nice too, sort of expanding my world. And it made me really start seeing everybody, not only in the women in my book, but everybody as just a beautiful human being, right? All of our physical features are unique and beautiful. I don't know what other word to use.
What
Yeah.
an experience! What a powerful experience! As just your journey alone in putting this book together and what you came away with yourself is just powerful. So we have this wonderful book, and it's the My Beautiful Black Hair, 101 Natural Hair Stories from the Sisterhood. And then also there was a documentary, Documented. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I actually made that documentary called Documented during my last semester of college. It was the fall of 2017, and President Trump had just attempted to rescind the DACA program. And for those who don't know, DACA is a program that protects undocumented youth, so immigrants who came here as children but don't have any papers. DACA was a program that protected them from deportation and allowed them to have work permits, right, and other benefits. And so that was a really life-changing program for a lot of people. And when Trump attempted to rescind the program, there was a lot of fear and uncertainty about what was going to happen, and if these immigrants, many of whom only know the United States as their home, if they would be able to stay. And so that's when I decided, because I was taking this documentary filmmaking class, we had to do a final project. And I said, hey, I think I'm going to do a project on the DACA program, right? And so I interviewed nine DACA recipients from all different countries, Trinidad and Tobago, Zambia, Argentina, El Salvador, a couple other countries, and asked them just to share with me about their experiences and sort of what they were feeling in the moment. Yeah.
And I as I'm listening to you, it's causing me to reflect on my years as an educator. And having those experiences with those students who, you become really close to your students, and seeing the fear in them not being able to concentrate in the classroom for fear of, someone coming into the classroom, or when they get home, would a family member be gone? And when you really have that up close and personal experience, it really drives it home, in regard to, like you said, these young people, this is all they know. And, for that to be compromised, it's heartbreaking to see, to see them, in that situation. So thank you for bringing that to the forefront. Share with the audience how they can stay connected with you, your website, social media.
Yeah, so people can connect with me on Instagram, either at my name, St. Clair Detrick-Jules, or I also have an Instagram for Black hair specifically. That's My Beautiful Black Hair, just all one word. And then you can also find my book on my website, which is www.stclairdetrickjules.com, or www.mybeautifulblackhair.com. Again, all one word. And for Black History Month, actually, also my book is available at Target across the country. So you can also check it out there as well.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking the charge for your sister and being an advocate, not only for her, but for so many, and providing a book from which women of color can draw encouragement, can draw strength, and for many, perhaps help them to how can I put it? Build their self-esteem, to plant the seeds of positive self-esteem, if you will. So thank you so much for joining us, and just blessings to you as well. And ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our show. We've come to the end of this particular journey. We thank each and every one of you so much for tuning in or listening. We thank our underwriters for your support of My Journey with Paula G, embracing this journey and giving us the opportunity to provide this platform as well. You can connect with me on social media, Paula G Voice, website, paulagvoice.com, email paula@paulagvoice.com, or jerryvoicelive@gmail.com. We thank you all so much for joining us. And remember that the greatest conversation you will ever have is the one that takes place in between your ears. What are you speaking to yourself? Is God a part of that conversation? And are you listening to his still small voice? Until next time, embrace the journey. This is Paula G Voice, aka Lady Wisdom, with Everything Does Not Deserve a Comment. Now I'm preaching to myself on this one too. Everything, every interaction does not deserve a comment. Sometimes we just have to walk away, refrain from comment, posting, hitting send, leaving a fiery voicemail, etc. Sometimes we just have to let it be and not give energy to what would otherwise be labeled as foolishness. You remember when your little brother or sister, your child, grandchild, niece, or nephew had a temper tantrum because they didn't get what they wanted? Sometimes we just had to leave them there kicking and screaming on the floor until they wore themselves out and took an involuntary nap. Now, I'm not talking about those falling out in the middle of the grocery store tantrums. Some of us remember being scooped up and taken into the restroom for an attitude adjustment session with mama. Sometimes when we are dealing with out of control or offensive people, we have to realize that their behavior may not be worthy of any kind of response. Discern when to respond and when to walk away, figuratively and literally. I'm Lady Wisdom, a sagacious lifestyle influencer embracing my journey, sharing experiences along the way, challenging dreamers to do the same by breathing life into their deferred dreams and living out their reality. It's never too late to embrace your journey and live your dreams. Visit Paula's blog at paulagvoice.com/blog for the full journey. This is Paula G. Voice, aka Lady Wisdom, with It's All There. Now, I'm by no means a theological scholar, but there are some aspects of theological history that bear notice. Countries that seem to perpetually be at war no matter how much other countries attempt to intervene and bring peace. If we turn back the pages of a Bible, a Quran, or other sacred book, we see what has happened since the beginning of time. It all makes sense. It's not pretty, but it makes sense. We are frustrated because after almost 2 years at the time of this blog, we are still dealing with a pandemic and asking the question, when will it be over? In the early biblical days, we see where a 40-day journey took 40 years due to lack of discipline, patience, obedience, unity. When will it be over? We now have instant experts on almost everything. Instant in that social media provides anyone with a thought a platform on which to share that thought in a manner that can be so convincing it can create great passion and belief in those who absorb this surface knowledge. In biblical times, ailing people didn't go to the money changers for medical attention, they sought the doctor. So I have to wonder if these individuals would be okay with a motivational speaker, a politician, an advocate, or otherwise instigator performing surgery on them in their hour of need. It's just a thought. I'm Paula G. Voice. I'm a sagacious, independent lifestyle influencer. I'm embracing my own journey and sharing experiences along the way, challenging dreamers to do the same by breathing life into their deferred dreams and living out the reality, because it's never too late to embrace your journey and live your dreams. Visit Paula's blog, paulagvoice.com/blog for the full journey.
Music.